I know we all want the absolute best videos for client properties that drive both views and sales, but what if your budget is basically zero and all you have is the cell phone in your pocket or on the table? Well, that's what this video is going to help you with. I don't promise it'll be short, but I do promise it will be chock full of information that is super helpful for on-site real estate video creation with, of course, that camera you already own. I'm going to cover my top 5 handheld camera techniques that will give your finished videos that luxurious feel to help drive those views and sales I just brought up. It does not matter if you're a full-time creator, an agent, an agency broker, or someone aspiring to be any of the things I just listed. This video will have the information and tricks I have never actually shared publicly on this YouTube channel before. What's the deal, everyone? I'm Jeremy Deal, and if you're new here, I help solve the problems of creatives with a focus on running a real estate visuals marketing company and, of course, the gear it takes to do that. Today's video is sponsored by a longtime supporter of the channel, Virtual Staging AI, but more on them a little later on in the video. Before I give you the 5 main shots, I'm going to give you as many of the tips you're going to need right up front. So if you have zero desire in all of the extra stuff and you just want the shot list, you can skip to this point in the video. Now, to the tips before you start shooting. I'm not saying you should always start your videos on the exterior, but typically it's a great place to begin. See, when it comes to cell phones, these small sensors just seem to create a cleaner and crispier footage with all that available daylight, so they make a great place to stop someone's scroll. You could also choose to start with some other rear exterior shot, backyard, deck, sunroom shot, whatever you think is best to, again, stop that scroll for just 2 seconds and say, wow, that's pretty. Because once you have them hooked for 2 seconds, they'll usually watch to the end. I like to shoot as much of my video in 60 FPS as possible so I can slow it down in post-production for that buttery smooth look, but that is not available to everyone on every phone. And it can also kind of make interiors look darker, so just keep that in mind that there is a balancing act of how slow you can make the footage versus how quality and grain-free that image you will get from your camera looks. Choose your music first. In my personal opinion, it's way easier to shoot a property if you know exactly what song you're going to play that video to. If you're someone who likes to shoot directly in apps like TikTok or Instagram, then you already know how important this step is, and you're probably used to this workflow. Having the pace and beat of a song in my mind and playing it while I'm creating footage, well, I think that's the best way to be inspired on room layout and shot design for the video you're creating. Because if you don't go into your shoot with a game plan, then you've already set yourself up for failure. So that brings me to the last big tip I want to give you so you think about it before you start your shoot. Have a game plan for your video. I'm not saying you have to storyboard this thing out, but listen to the song you choose and think about how you can line up shots to be the most visually appealing. Think about the camera movements I'm about to teach you and how to line them up so it's not visually jarring to the viewer for the transitions between those shots. You do not want to follow a pan camera left with a pan camera right unless you absolutely have to. This part truly is the most important because you really want to lead the viewer around to the most important parts of the property and never feel obligated to include every room. For my full-length horizontal videos, I try and put as much of the house as possible in there, but even there, having every single space is never a requirement. Remember that. The goal is not to show everything. It's to entice the viewer to watch to the end and hopefully view this property in person. With all those tips in mind, I would really appreciate you doing the YouTube thing, liking the video below if it's already been useful, and if you don't mind, it's actually time for today's sponsor plug because I gotta pay the bills. I want to tell you about today's video sponsor, virtualstaging.ai. It does not matter if you're a professional photographer in the real estate space, a brokerage running a team, or just a single agent wanting to increase the look and feel of your brand online. It's not only the cheapest virtual staging you can find, it's also the best AI-driven product out there, and it has multiple styles of furniture and room type to choose from. They just also released their destaging option, so now you can remove that unsightly furniture that's there now and replace it with pieces that match your branding vibe. Check out the affiliate link down below to get the biggest discount they offer and not only get an amazing product to step up your game, but also support this channel in the process. Now, back to the video. Shot 1, the reveal. I personally like to use this one as my establishing shot for the majority of my videos because The dynamics of movement seem to help my goal of, again, stopping that scroll more often than the more stagnant shots. For this shot, you'll want to line up behind an object to use as the foreground. I personally try to find natural things like trees and foliage for this, but you can use whatever's available to you, including the real estate sign. And slowly reveal the subject matter, being the house. I like to keep that subject matter in the center of the frame here, and typically I use a left to right motion known as a truck left, or a low to high motion known as a crane up or pedestal up, depending on if you're keeping the camera the same way and the same angle all the way up. Shot 2, the speed ramp. This is another shot that has extremely high value for visual retention. I like to use it close to the beginning of my videos, but be careful because it can easily be overused if not done correctly. There are 2 different ways to do this technique, so I'll actually be giving you a bonus 6th technique on the list, but I'll teach you the easier of the 2 first. Before you get into any variation of this shot, you'll have to keep in principles the ninja walk to help keep your footage as smooth as possible. That's where you walk with slightly bent knees, heel to toe with as little up and down movement as possible. The goal is to take the camera and move it on a level plane with no bouncing up and down. And the more you practice technique, the better you'll get. First speed ramp is going to be the transitional speed ramp, where you take 2 different clips moving in the same direction and apply a speed ramp and blur between the 2 shots for a clean transitional look. I like to do this one as a backwards moving shot because I personally feel like it reveals a little bit more, but you can also use it forward moving or left to right movements. Bonus shot, the speed ramp method 2. Using that same ninja walk technique you just learned, it's time to apply it in the hardest way. The one long shot that you speed ramp the center of to shorten that clip. Some of my favorite ways to use this shot is connected living spaces like kitchens to living rooms or primary bedrooms to primary bathrooms. You can connect this effect and walk to multiple rooms in a single shot, but just know that from my personal experience, this method can kind of start to feel stale in the video after 2 or 3 uses. So that's the most I would go with it. Shot 3, the Doorframe Dolly. This is a shot that I use all the time because you don't actually have to walk to pull it off. I talk a lot in my previous videos about how I move the camera from the hips and not from the feet, and that is another super important technique to keep in mind while making all of these videos because keeping steady footage is hard. The goal here is to move the phone as smooth as possible, so you plant your feet in a wide stance, squat down a tiny bit and balance all of your weight to one side, then slowly shifting at just the hips to make a more level plane of movement for the camera. I'll be referring to this technique a few more times in the video, so I hope that was a clear explanation for you. In this shot, I like to start with the camera outside of the room and slowly push in, or start from the inside and pull out of that space using part of the door frame as foreground in the shot like we did with the reveal. If it's a smaller room, you can also tilt the camera up or down while doing this, but be wary of how bad the verticals of the foreground can distort when doing so. Shot 4, the fake slider. Now this is actually my most commonly created shot in the field. It's the simplest to do, it has a great look, and especially if you get it slow enough. If I've not mentioned it enough so far, the main goal is that super smooth motion with no bounce or wobble. Simple, right? Not so much in practice. So I'll go back to the technique I just told you about, the hip movements, and say how much easier this shot is if you just continue using that method of camera movement, left to right. You can even enhance how smooth you can make those motions by tucking your arms in to lock against your chest and taking a good breath and hold it as you begin to move so you're not getting wobbles from your breathing. Typically, this shot is done trucking left to right or dollying forwards to backwards, but again, you can choose to tilt the camera in the process as long as those tilts are smooth and not jarring. Feel free to combine this technique and the reveal technique we shot with in the beginning to showcase features of the properties like sinks, fireplaces, built-ins. You get the point. Shot 5, the long shot. This is how I like to end my videos. Most other shots I've shown you so far are fairly short on screen time, but I like my last shot to hold long and feel good. It's a great place to put stuff like agent contact information or anything you might have not gotten into the course of the video. I personally like to do this shot in either the backyard to give the viewer a sense of how peaceful it could be back there, or if the neighborhood has amenities, I would try to include just the most impactful one here, like maybe a cool one at the pool. just remember that the smoothness of this shot is even harder than the rest because of how long the shot will hold on the screen. So take extra time on site to make sure you get it right. Keep in mind throughout your shoot that not everything has to be at the same height or level. A variety of angles and combinations of shots used that I just talked about to create something eye-catching, and always remember that less is more. Don't feel obligated to use a shot just because you took it. As a matter of fact, you should be taking way more clips than you'll need, so you have more options when it comes to the edit and you never feel restrained. Again, think about giving this video a like or a sub to the channel if you made it this far, and comment down below with any questions for the community. Think about using the affiliate links down below that support this channel, Virtual Staging AI, and if you're interested on how to enhance those skills even further, then check out either of the videos on screen now. Keep rocking and rolling, enjoy what you're doing, make smart business decisions, and I will catch you next time.